Welcome, bienvenidos. My name is Molly Neighbor, and I work for Mid-Penn Housing. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are offering translation services during the presentation portions of this meeting. Next slide, please. If you're using a computer, click the interpretation icon, which looks like a globe at the bottom of your screen, and select Spanish and mute original audio. If you're using your phone, click the More icon, which has 3 dots, and select Language Interpretation. Questions and answers in the chat will be translated to Spanish in the interpretation channel. You can also enter a question into the chat in Spanish, and we'll translate to English before answering. If you would like to participate in the Spanish language breakout room later in the meeting, please type that into the chat now. If you would like to participate in closed captioning during the breakout room session, please direct message Jolene Bradford now.
Buenas noches. Estamos ofreciendo servicios de interpretación durante las porciones que corresponden a las presentaciones de esta reunión. Si está utilizando una computadora, haga clic en el icono de interpretación que aparece como un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom y seleccione, una vez que haya hecho clic, el canal en español y silencie el audio original. Si está utilizando su teléfono, haga clic en el icono de más y seleccione los 3 puntos para interpretación en idiomas. Las preguntas y respuestas del chat serán traducidas también al español en el canal de interpretación. También puede ingresar una pregunta en el chat en español si lo desea y traduciremos en inglés dicha respuesta. Si desea participar en la sala de reuniones dedicada al español, por favor, señálelo ahora en el chat para que tomemos las previsiones. Si desea subtítulos durante la sesión de trabajo, envíe un mensaje directo, por favor, a la señora Jolene Bradford. Muchas gracias.
Next slide, please. We have an interactive meeting planned tonight. We'll start with 40 minutes of presentations by the VTA, Mid-Penn Housing, and the VTA Transit Access Consultant, IBI. There are 3 distinct components of tonight's presentation. First, the VTA role in transit-oriented development. Second, an introduction to Mid-Penn Housing as an affordable housing developer for this project. And third, VTA's initiative to improve transit access in this area. These 3 distinct components shape each other and impact the neighborhood, which is why they are on tonight's agenda. Design is not the focus of tonight's meeting. 2 future meetings will focus on design of the affordable housing. After presentations, we will send attendees into breakout rooms. Half the attendees will join a breakout room with Mid-Penn staff. The other half will join a breakout room with VTA staff. After 15 minutes of interactive discussion with either Mid-Penn or the VTA, we will move panelists into a breakout room with the attendees they did not meet during the first 15 minutes. If you need Spanish translation services, please message us in the Zoom chat now so we can ensure you're in the breakout room with Spanish translation. At 7:15, we will all gather to summarize feedback from the breakout rooms and discuss next steps before ending the meeting at 7:30. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Neeb. I am with the VTA Transit Oriented Development Team, and I am the project manager for the Capital Project. And before we begin tonight, we have a few quick housekeeping notes. So I want to ask all of you to take a quick minute and read this slide. As we talk about the project this evening, we really want to make sure that this is a respectful meeting for everyone. So please ensure that every comment you make or message in the chat is respectful. And please be aware that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on VTA's YouTube channel. This video and the slide deck will also be posted on the project website after this meeting. And if you have any issues with Zoom, please message Jolene with VTA or Amanda with MidPen. We have them on hand tonight to troubleshoot any tech issues.
Christina, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, please.
There's a concern that that they're hearing the Spanish translation at the same time. Can you guys raise your hand or do a thumbs up from the reaction if you're hearing the echo? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody responding, so I'm assuming that that must have been taken care of. Okay, thank you. You can go ahead.
No problem. Glad we got that sorted out. Next slide, please. So we would first like to get an idea of who's joining us tonight. So there's going to be a few polls that are about to pop up on your screen with a few questions about you. If you could take a quick moment and answer those. So our first question is whether you live or work near Capitol Station. I'm going to give everyone just a few moments to answer that. All right. Getting a good response rate here. Thank you all for jumping in and answering that. I'll give, let's say about 10 more seconds for everybody to answer that. All right. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. It looks like a majority of our attendees here tonight, almost 75% live near the Capitol Station. And we've got about 25% of attendees who don't live or work near Capitol, but thank you for joining us tonight to learn about this project. And now we're going to jump into poll number 2. Oh, go back, sorry. Right. A question on whether you are a renter or a homeowner here in the neighborhood, or wherever else you might live. Right. Going to give a few more moments so everybody has a chance to answer that. Okay. Going once, going twice. All right. It looks like the majority of our attendees here tonight, over 90%, are homeowners, and then we also have a little less than 10% who are renters. So thank you for answering that. One more poll. Actually, a few more, but here's the next one. So here's a quick question about how you get around from your home, from Capitol Station, from your work, from your school, getting a sense of what sort of modes that you use most frequently. All right. A few more moments to finish up this poll. We've got about 45 people who have answered, and we have 74 people who are here. So I'd like to get a few more on that one if we can. All right, a couple more seconds. Okay. All right, and it looks like the majority of, looks like is anybody else having an issue seeing the, are we seeing the poll, or are we seeing something else? Okay, you're seeing it. I got an error on my side. Just wanted to double check. All right, it looks like the majority of our team members here, or our attendees here, drive to get around. We've got a solid number of bicyclists and transit users and walkers. All right, next poll, please. So as some of you may be aware, we've had a couple of meetings on this project here. We had one back last spring and then one last fall. So I wanted to see if we have new attendees here or if we have people who've come back for more. All right, going to give a couple more seconds so everybody has a chance to answer. Okay. All right, I'm gonna close this poll now. It looks like quite a few of you are just joining us for the first time, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here. We've got a handful of people who also attended some of our previous meetings, so we're glad to see you again. Thanks for coming. And then we have one last poll. So this is an optional poll that you can answer if you feel comfortable with. We always try to gather demographic data about our attendees at our public meetings. So I'll give you a couple of moments to answer this.
Christina, they may have to scroll down to see all of the answers.
Okay, yeah, if your window is a little small, please make sure that you can scroll all the way down to the bottom so you can see all the different options there. All right, I'll give about 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. We've got a great group of people here tonight. Really glad that all of you were able to join us. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to answer a few questions about yourself. So we're going to go to our next slide now, please. VTA acknowledges that the Capitol site is located on the unceded lands of the Tamian people. VTA's occupation and ownership of this land is the result of colonization, genocide, dislocation, disease, and white supremacy of Spanish, Mexican, and American settlers and local, state, and federal governments. Historical and cultural resources may be discovered here as VTA begins development. VTA will make efforts to preserve those remains and ensure they are returned to the communities most connected to them. Next slide, please. So we have a really great group of people and organizations who've come together tonight to work on this project and also to present to you. So Capitol is one of the Measure A partnership sites between VTA and the Santa Clara County Office of Supportive Housing. So we have a few people from OSH here with us tonight. We also have our developer partners, MidPenn. We're very excited for you all to meet them here tonight. MidPenn's design partner, Methune, and IBI, who is supporting our access study, which we'll hear a lot more about later on this evening. We also welcome our elected officials from the city of San Jose. I know that we have Helen Chapman from Director Sergio Jimenez's office. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Helen. And we also have Charla Gomez from the San Jose Planning Department. And I believe Charla has a few words she'd like to share. So I'm going to request that Charla unmute herself. Oh, is Charla not here? I don't think I see her in the participants list. So, all right. Unfortunately, we're not going to hear from Charlotte tonight, but thank you for everybody else for joining us here. Really glad to see you all. All right. Next slide, please. The people of San Jose, along with VTA, want to see our neighbors thriving. Residents of color in Santa Clara County have historically been excluded from equitable housing opportunities. According to a 2021 Brookings Institution study, the San Jose region ranked as the most prosperous region of the country, but in the bottom 5% nationwide in racial inclusion. For example, 44% of the homeless population identifies as Latinx, while only 27% of the overall population identifies as Latinx. At VTA, we are working to address disparities of experience based on income and race. The Transit-Oriented Development Program provides affordable housing and jobs near transit, which can help address housing barriers and segregation in our communities. We ask that you join VTA in our efforts to create a community where all people are housed, mobile, and heard. When many people think of VTA, they often think of buses and light rails, but we do a lot more than just public transit. This wheel that you see on your screen now shows all the ways that VTA touches every part of transportation in the county. And in addition to these transit services and highway improvements, VTA has a transit-oriented development program, which encourages development next to transit stations. This reduces greenhouse gas emissions, lowers traffic congestion, and provides VTA with stable revenue to fund its transit services. So I know that quite a few of our attendees here tonight are here for the first time about this project. So I want to give you a little bit of background on what we've done so far. So we have a site at the Capitol Station, and we also have a site down at the Branham Station. And these are both part of a partnership between VTA and the Santa Clara County Office of Supportive Housing. So we're using Measure A affordable housing funds to develop housing on VTA-owned land. VTA first came to the community to discuss the Branham project back in the spring of April, I believe, 2021, and then again that fall to talk about Capitol. And we got a lot of really excellent feedback from these meetings, which we were able to incorporate into the request for offers that we released to developers last November. Now, we didn't get any proposals for the Branham site, but we did get a handful for Capitol, and we invited a community representative who lives in the neighborhood and attended those previous meetings to join our review panel. And he was generous enough to volunteer his time and attended these and reviewed each of the proposals, took part in all of our interviews, helped us deliberate and choose the appropriate developer for this site. And the developer that we chose was MidPenn, who we're really excited to introduce you all to tonight. But in the case of Branham, we are going to be reaching back out to the developer community later on this fall, and there will be future community engagement just like this meeting here that will take place once we have a developer on board. And I'm about to hand it right back over to Molly with MidPenn, but before we go, before I go personally, we have one last poll. And this is a question about what you would most like to see as an improvement near Capitol Station as part of this project. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a few more seconds to answer. Okay, we got about 65% response rate. See if we have a little bit of time for some more. All right, I'm gonna give it about 5 more seconds. Great, thank you guys. And it looks like the majority, a little less than 60%, want to see greater safety on the site, followed by lighting, then transit service, then parking. Thank you so much for your input on this. This is really helpful as we continue on in this project. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Molly at MidPenn.
Hello again. I'd like to share more information about MidPenn Housing, starting with our mission statement. MidPenn Housing is a 52-year-old nonprofit affordable housing developer. We're based in Foster City. MidPenn owns and operates approximately 8,500 affordable rental homes throughout the Bay Area, of which more than 1,100 homes are here in the city of San Jose. The neighbor engagement that we're launching with you this evening is core to fulfilling MidPenn's mission of fostering diverse communities that allow people of all ethnic, social, and economic backgrounds to live in dignity, harmony, and mutual respect. MidPenn is a vertically integrated nonprofit organization. We are the property managers and resident service providers of the communities we build. The MidPenn real estate development, property management, and resident services teams collaborate so that the affordable housing we develop and maintain meets our goals of being safe, high quality, and establishing stability and opportunity in the lives of our residents. MidPenn's concept for affordable housing at Capitol Station is informed by VTA's goals, which Christina explained earlier. We aim to provide approximately 203 affordable rental homes and residential parking for low-income families, including formerly homeless households. Examples of careers associated with qualifying income levels are shown in the chart on this slide. This chart illustrates what many of you already know. The housing that we're developing at Capitol Station is necessary so families living and working in this community can remain here in a safe, affordable home. Additional community benefits in the reimagined Capitol Station area will include pedestrian and bicycle improvements, such as a car-free paseo through the site, public amenities in the approximately 5,000 square foot community serving space on the ground floor of the residential building, improvements to support transit access, vibrant landscaping, and public art that celebrates community. We'd like your input again. Here comes another poll. Please take a moment to complete this poll, ranking your top 3 priorities for the community serving spaces in the development. Please choose 3 options. This poll is looking for your feedback on the community space at the ground floor of the residential building, what it could be used for. Thanks for that input. I'll give a few more seconds. Again, we're looking for feedback here on what the community serving space at the ground floor of the affordable housing could be used for. So I am seeing a range of feedback related to pedestrian safety improvements, a cafe, some votes for makerspace or a satellite library, enthusiasm for grocery market-like uses, public gathering spaces, a real range of interest. Thank you all for that feedback to inform our ongoing work on this development. We can end the poll now, Jolene. Our meeting this evening is called Meet the Developer because we want you to get to know us and vice versa. We plan to host 2 more meetings that will focus on the design of the affordable homes. We anticipate that the design-focused meetings will occur in November and January. We'll share more information at the end of this meeting. MidPenn's concept for affordable housing at Capitol Station is informed by transit-focused improvements in this area. Jean Gonzalo and Aiko Quinco from the VTA, as well as the team from IBI, will now share more information about transit-focused improvements. I'll hand it off to Jean.
Good evening. My name is Jean Gonzalo, and I am the VTA Highway Program Manager. VTA is working with the City of San Jose, Caltrans, and the County of Santa Clara Roads and Airports Department with a project to address traffic congestion issues at the northbound State Route 87 on and off ramps at Narvaez, as you can see on the screen. As part of the project, improved bicycle and pedestrian access in the project area along Capitol Expressway and along Narvaez Avenue will also be provided. We are in the early planning phase and investigating alternatives with input from our stakeholders from the city, Caltrans, County Roads and Airports, and our VTA planning and transit departments. Next slide, please. An alternatives analysis and preliminary engineering work is expected to be done by the end of the year or early next year. The next step would be to start the environmental process and develop the alternatives further. We anticipate reaching out to the community late next year to get input on the project alternatives. We are only funded at this point to complete the environmental phase, but if funding gets secured, We anticipate starting construction in 2026 and complete it in about 2 years. Thank you. Next up is Aiko.
Good evening. I'm Aiko Cuenco, and I'm the VTA project manager for the Capitol and Branham Station Access Study. So as mentioned earlier, in addition to meeting the affordable housing developer tonight, we are sharing information about VTA-led initiatives to improve access and circulation in the project area. The first is the 87 Capitol Expressway Interchange Project, which you just heard about. The second is the access study for the Capitol and Branham Station. So VTA conducts an access study as part of each TOD project to ensure that any future development that is proposed to be built at the transit stations is well integrated with the existing neighborhood. As we plan for future affordable housing at the Capitol and Branham sites, our access study will identify improvements that will make it easier to walk, bike, and take connecting transit from the Capitol and Branham station areas. Recommendations may include improving bicycle connectivity, pedestrian access, pickup drop-off options, traffic calming measures, and other safety enhancements. The recommendations will be used to inform the TOD project and ensure that the project that is ultimately constructed is well integrated into the existing transportation network and surrounding community. Next slide, please. So we are at the beginning stage of this planning study. In the next few months, we will be working with our consultant team from IBI to document the current access conditions and transportation gaps in the station area. We will also go out to the community this fall to ask for input on transportation challenges and barriers you face in accessing the station today, and then work with the community to identify some potential solutions. The bulk of this work will occur towards the end of the year as we develop the recommendations for the transportation improvements identified. I will now turn it over to Jennifer Moore from IBI to provide us an overview of the current site access conditions in the project area.
Thanks, Aiko. Hi, I'm Jennifer Moore, the project manager for the Capitol Branham Station Access Study. I'm representing IBI Group. We're working with VTA stakeholders in the community to identify how people currently access the Capitol and Branham stations and what improvements would make access to the stations easier and more enjoyable. We want to know how people get to the station, how often, and whether they encounter any barriers along their journey. Whether it's bike facilities, wayfinding, traffic, or lighting, we want to hear about what impacts people's experience. Our team is just starting the access study process, and over the next 6 months, we will be out conducting walk audits, surveys, and meeting people in the community one-on-one at pop-ups. Through these activities, we'll get a sense of the existing conditions, we'll be able to identify gaps and barriers in access, and document community priorities. From there, our team will provide prioritized recommendations for access improvements within the station areas, as well as an additional off-site improvements for nearby intersections and streets where appropriate. Our first opportunity for community feedback starts right here in this meeting. During the Q&A, we hope you'll engage with our team to discuss for a discussion around better access for both Capitol and Branham stations. In preparation for our breakout session, we'd like to quickly run through the current conditions related to access of the stations today. This first slide shows us where people access Capitol Station depending on their transportation mode. Pedestrians and cyclists access the station entrance from the sidewalks on both the north and south sides of East Capitol Expressway. Vehicles arrive either at the north or south park and ride lots off Narvez and proceed westbound to the station via the sidewalks on East Capitol Expressway. Bus connections use the turnaround on the south side of East Capitol Expressway within the park and ride area, allowing passengers to disembark and proceed west on the East Capitol Expressway sidewalk to make their light rail connection. Next slide, please. This next slide shows us the current circulation patterns for pedestrians accessing the site. The red dashed lines indicate where we have started to identify some gaps in sidewalk connectivity. Notice the west side of Narvez Avenue is currently without a sidewalk. Next slide, please. This next slide shows us the current circulation patterns for cyclists accessing the site within a half-mile radius. In the immediate vicinity of the station, there are currently bike lanes on Narvaez Avenue and Capitol Expressway west of 87, but there are currently no formal bike lanes located on Capitol Expressway east of 87. Bikes are permitted on Capitol Expressway, but there are currently no painted bike lanes. Next slide, please. So Capitol Light Rail Station is serviced by the Blue Line Light Rail, Bus Route 37, and Bus Route 70. Both bus routes terminate at the station. Branham Station is not serviced by any bus routes. Therefore, people accessing light rail by bus will do so at Capitol Station rather than Branham. Next slide, please. So next, we look at Branham Station. While the Branham Station is not part of the current development process being discussed here tonight, it is part of our access study. And due to the proximity of the stations, it's helpful to look at them together. With the help of public and stakeholder input, the study will provide recommendations for improvements that could be incorporated into future development of the site. Since there are no buses to Branham Station, most people currently arrive at the station as a pedestrian, cyclist, or by vehicle. Pedestrians and cyclists access the station from sidewalks on the north side of Branham Lane. The protected bike lane adjacent to the station entrance is ideal for westbound cyclists arriving, but is prohibitive for passenger drop-off in this area. Passengers arriving in vehicles must use the park and ride lot off Narvaez and then proceed to the sidewalk on Branham Lane to access the station entrance. Next slide, please. And this next slide shows the pedestrian facilities around Branham. The yellow line indicates the shared use path known as Highway 87 Bikeway, and the red dashed lines indicate where we have started to identify some gaps in sidewalk connectivity. Next slide, please. And last but not least, the cycling connection directly to Branham Station appears strong, with protected bike lanes leading cyclists directly to the station entrance on Branham Lane. The Highway 87 Bikeway ends just north of the park and ride lot with access to bike lanes on Narvaez and Branham Lane. Further study will look to uncover gaps or barriers in the network and provide recommendations. As mentioned, we are just getting started in the study process, and in addition to these pedestrian, cycling, and transit infrastructure items, we will be looking at existing conditions and improvements to ADA accessibility, wayfinding, traffic calming, traffic demand management, safety, and comfort. So I'd like to thank you for giving our team the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and we hope to hear your thoughts and ideas on access in the Q&A session. With that, I'll pass it back over to Molly.
Thanks everyone for your attention during the presentations. That was a lot of dialogue in the chat, and also appreciated your listening during our speaking. We're getting ready to move into the next session of tonight's agenda, moving into breakout rooms. So Jolene from the VTA will now send half of you, she'll send half of you to a breakout room with MidPen staff and the other half to a breakout room with VTA staff. After 15 minutes, approximately in the breakout room, the panelists in your breakout room will change so that everyone has the opportunity to meet with both MidPen and VTA. After everyone has a chance to be in a 15-minute breakout room with MidPen and a 15-minute breakout room with VTA, we'll regroup in our main Zoom room in 30 minutes for a debrief and discussion of next steps.
So I'm going to go ahead and open the breakout room. If you guys see a thing that says breakout room, please choose that. Some of you guys will be in the main room. If you don't see a breakout room button, that means you're in the main room.
Okay, I think I will go ahead and just get started and kick us off for this Mid-Penn breakout room. So hi everyone, I'm Cynthia Luzad. I'm with Mid-Penn. Welcome to the Q&A portion of the meeting. As Molly mentioned a few seconds ago, there are 2 breakout rooms. You're currently in the breakout room that's hosted by Mid-Penn. We have representatives from our Mid-Penn development team, property management, and resident services team, as well as our design team, Methuen, folks from the VTA and from the county. And so we're all here to answer your questions. And our goal for this breakout room is for attendees to leave with a better understanding of who Mid-Penn is, what we do, and for you to feel like your open questions have been answered. So before we dive into questions, I'd like to ask for a volunteer who would be willing to provide a 30-second max recap of what we discussed during this breakout room. And then this recap should highlight, major takeaways or topics. And we encourage you to not just share your personal opinion, but to kind of just share kind of what a big takeaway was. So after the breakout session, this volunteer will provide their 30-second summary to all attendees in the main room. So do I have anyone who's willing to volunteer to do that summary recap? And it can just be, a major highlight. And if you're interested, if you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand using the reaction icon at the bottom of your screen. That's a good way for me to know that you're interested in volunteering. Okay. It seems like people are a little shy, which is totally okay. So if throughout this Q&A session you decide you do want to be a volunteer, just let me know. Otherwise, I can give a kind of a quick recap when we return to the main room. So now we're going to dive into the questions. To ask a question, you can either raise your hand using that reaction icon at the bottom of your screen, or by clicking the raise hand button, or by typing into the Zoom chat box. And I will alternate between answering written and verbal questions. And Abby here from Mid-Penn is going to help me kind of make sure that she's lifting some of the written questions to my attention. So let's see. Do I have any verbal questions? And if not, I will just dive into maybe one of the first written questions. Abby, was there one that kind of came in that we can answer first? So I see just kind of, I see a hand raised. So I'm gonna unmute you. I think you should be able to, yeah, there you go.
So this project is a done deal. We're going to start construction in 2026. That's a given.
Yeah, that's right. So it is a given that we will be building affordable housing on this site. What's not a done deal is kind of the design portion of this building. So as Molly had mentioned, there will be some future design focus meetings, and so that's where you'll be able to, and we hope you join those meetings. There'll also be community.
On the first one for Branham, I didn't get any notification for any of the other ones. So you're talking about 200 plus units at that corner at Capitol and Narvez, right? I've lived in this house for 30 years. Narvez is it's a hazard that, I don't know if you've ever driven on Narvez, you've ever been around Narvez. It's bumpy, it's turny. It's just like 87. The road is with the expansive soil in our houses in the neighborhood. The road's dangerous. There's been several accidents there. I commute in the morning at anywhere between 5 to 6 a.m. depending on my schedule. And getting on to 87, cross Narvez, on Narvez, crossing onto crossing Capitol, with people coming from Capitol both west and eastbound, it's a joke. And if you're going to put 200 people in there, you're going to have to make Narvez a 4-lane road. And I'm in construction, and I don't see that happen. And I don't think there's been too much thought to the people in the neighborhood with these projects, both at Branham and at Narvez, because the infrastructure in the area can't handle it. And I understand you want to get people on transit and so on and so forth. Drive by those parking lots every single day, and you might have 5 cars in those lots, period. And then we've got the bike lane issue with all the homeless. That's crazy. I don't even go down the bike rail. And then if you're on Branham, both sides of Branham, going up over 87, you got homeless sitting there too. I think the money would be better spent on trying to get those people off the streets, and they're not going to be able to go into affordable housing because they don't want jobs. They don't have jobs. They're mentally wiped out because of their drug addictions and so on and so forth. So, right. And then house prices, you know, my house value is going to go down. We're going to have people parking in runoff parking into the neighborhood, right? We're going to have more break-ins. I just don't think this is well thought out. That's my concern. So.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I will say, we appreciate just your feedback there. And one thing I will say is that, with this development, we hope that, that kind of turning, transitioning these emptier parking lots into kind of something that's really a lot more for the community, that provides housing, that's going to result in more lighting in the site, will increase kind of some of the safety concerns and some of the homeless encampments that you're speaking to. This is also adding, I know.
It's not, you're going to add lighting. It's not going to increase the safety. Sure, lighting does increase safety, but you want to put a grocery store in there. We've got grocery stores right around the corner. Mm-hmm. We've got everything. It's all right there. And it just, 20 years ago, maybe that was a good idea. Should have been done 20 years ago. Light rail doesn't do much for serving anybody for getting to work, because we're in Mountain View, we're all over the place. Now, maybe with Google going in downtown, you might have something there, because we're starting to design on that project right there. But again, I don't believe.
Thank you.
Housing is the answer for
Thank you for, I just want to, thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I'm sorry, don't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure that there's space and room for some other questions that we've been receiving, but yeah, I really.
Could I raise one? Could I raise one up here?
Yeah, please.
In the chat. I want to make sure we're hitting the chat and participants that are wanting to speak. And I know we've got a couple other folks raising their hands. So one question that we are getting is, I wanted to give the, well, there's 2 here in the chat that I want to hit on. One is, given the location, will management provide VTA transit passes to residents? And then we'll hit on another one after that. So I don't know, Cynthia, if you've got,
sure.
If you have anything to say to that.
Yeah, so thanks for that question. We are planning on providing transit passes to future residents, and Mid-Penn has experience and a history of providing those free transit passes at other properties as well. So that is part of our plan. Thank you for that question.
And then just want to say in the chat, I'm also seeing concerns raised around, someone says, Lisa Sanchez says that the really main concerns for neighbors are traffic, safety, crime, and encampments. So kind of reiterating what the previous speaker said here. And again, really, we appreciate the feedback from the neighbors and are taking all of that into consideration as we move forward with our proposed design.
Thanks. Okay, Ginger, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you and allow you to ask your question.
Okay, I asked the question in the chat about the other apartment buildings that were built on Capitol. When those were put in, VTA was giving us the song and dance that we had to have high density next to light rail, and everybody's going to use light rail. And what it did was inundate the neighborhoods with cars. We are battling cars that the neighbors have to go and park on or that we have to park on the street, because we just, every night we get hundreds of cars coming into the neighborhood. So with the low, because I was told there's only 0.8 parking spots per unit of this particular proposal being built, what are you going to do for all the neighbors that can no longer park in their neighborhood, can no longer have visitors over or anything else, just like we faced with the other Capitol developments that took place, because VTA thought it was a great idea close to the light rail?
Thanks, Ginger, for your question. So I will start out by saying, and maybe I'll hand it over to Christina, but I will just first highlight that as part of the affordable housing, the proposed affordable housing property, we are planning on providing residential parking spaces. It would be 100, right now, the way that it's designed is there'd be 100 parking spaces for the future community. And so we also, hope that, in addition to kind of the parking spaces that we'll be building and obviously the transit that's right there, we're also hoping and planning to kind of improve some of the pedestrian and bicycle lanes along Capitol Expressway and Narvez to hopefully facilitate some additional modes of transportation. But Christina, maybe I'll let you go ahead and speak to the other portion of Ginger's question.
Sure. And I also wanted to, Cynthia, give you a heads up that we just got our 5-minute warning.
Okay.
So a couple of different things. So the apartment complex that was put on the other side of Capitol near the Home Depot, as I'm sure you know, because you live in the neighborhood, it's a little more difficult to access the transit station from there because you're across the street. So the incentive to use transit is actually a little lower when you have to travel to get there. When we're talking about this site here, we're literally adjacent to it, which makes it much more convenient. And then something else I'd like you to keep in mind is that the Capitol Station, I believe, somebody made this point a minute ago, and I apologize, but I can't remember your name. The Capitol Station has a little less than 1,000 parking spaces on it. It's a very large site. And, the development that we're talking about right now is taking up about 2 acres of a 10-acre site. So there will be significant amounts of parking still left on that site. And there's potential in the future that if there is some sort of overflow or great concern about that, we still have substantial amounts of parking that are available both to commuters and to residents. I'll hand it back to you, Cynthia.
Okay, thanks, Christina. Abby, do we have another? So we did get a 5-minute warning. So I just want to highlight that we'll try to get through maybe 2 more questions. But I know there are a lot of questions in the chat, so we will plan to respond to these in written format after the meeting. It might take a couple days, but we do plan to post it to our website. So just want to highlight that we don't want to miss any of your questions. And Abby, I don't know if there's a question in the chat that you want to lift here, but
A lot in the chat about the parking ratio. So I think it is worth us following up with everybody with more information about sort of what we at Mid-Penn, also what we see at our properties. A lot of this is done in connection with our property management team, and to make sure that we are going to be good neighbors, that we're not going to see the overflow traffic. So a lot of this is based on how we manage, but I think there's a lot of follow-up that we could do related to parking. That seems like one of the biggest comments here in the chat. So, and then there was a question about, is there any plan to build affordable housing mixed with commercial apartments? And I don't know, Cynthia, if you want to take that, or if you'd like someone else to do that.
Sure, maybe Christina, you want to take that one?
Yeah, happy to. So, like I said before, it's a really large site, over 10 acres, and the development that we're talking about right now is one phase of development. We do anticipate in the future having market rate or commercial uses on this site as well, but that's down the pipeline, hasn't been planned.
And then for this particular building that MidPenn will be building is going to be 100% affordable. Keely, I see that
are they
you have your
sale or rent?
Sorry, looks like you may be unmuted. I want to take a question from Keely, so I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Are the rents for sale?
Oh, hi, this is Keely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, hi, thank you.
Hi, just a couple of things. First, I went to your VTA.org Capital Development website and tried to register for updates. And I think there's actually a glitch. It says type your email a second time for confirmation, and then it just keeps re-giving you that message repeatedly. So I know it's in development, but you may want to fix that since you're linking everyone to that right now. And I think you have a lot of eager people who want better communication on staying on top of this so that feedback can be taken into consideration. We are homeowners, but I also think it's really important that we're bringing affordable housing. I think that the Bay Area is in crisis and many people in my generation cannot afford housing. I want to make sure that it's done right. I know that it's going there no matter what, but I really hope you do take into consideration. We are in our 40s, we have kids, we bike, we drive our cars. What I don't hear taking into consideration thus far for families is how families are outside of commuting. For adults, I think you definitely, depending on where you work, I think that the Bay Area is huge. So you may not work a place that VTA or buses go. You might be commuting. We are not in tech, but our job is still in South Palo Alto. It has nothing to do with the tech industry. You can get there, but you still, once you get off at the station, it's not close. So then it becomes, is it more cost effective and time effective to spend the morning with your kids, help them get off to school, and then drive because you dropped them at school on your way up? Or do you take it and then take a bike, but then maybe not get home in time to take your kids to soccer? So the timing of all of the routes is also very important. But I will let you know, my kids have almost been hit by a car no less than 20 times. I have also emailed into Transportation Authority asking for help with this. And I think a lot of people on here, I don't think what people are trying to say is they don't want it. I think what they're trying to say is it doesn't feel like anyone from this planning committee has sat in a car on the corner and just seen the nightmare that we are currently facing as homeowners and residents and people with kids and cars trying to get to different places. You cannot get anywhere as it is. And we just don't know how an additional on-ramp to 87 is really going to fix that, especially when all they've been doing in this traffic. Pearl went down to 1 lane, Capitol is now down to 2 instead of 3. So it just seems like everyone's not talking to each other, because if this project is in the pipeline, why did you just spend millions of dollars redesigning our streets to go lower when actually they need to provide an influx of cars on the road so that we can all get places in a more safe fashion? I know there's multiple layers of reasons that those were also installed. I know that, the street racing, there's all sorts of things that people are trying to combat, and they have different objectives, which aren't all aligning. But if everybody in this project could literally just go spend 3 hours, 5 different mornings over the next month and just see what it looks like in this neighborhood, on Capitol, on Narvaez, on the bike paths with our unhoused individuals. I would love to see our community space even include possible treatment centers or places where they could get social services or mental support services. But all of these are super real issues. And I just think everyone in this group is please just come see what it looks like in our neighborhood right now with your own eyes and your body, and feel what we're trying to get through in the morning just to get our kids to school, so that you can more realistically present to our community like actual solutions. Because lighting is great, but that's not actually the problem. We need to be able to safely get our kids to school and live in an area where we feel safe and not going to get run over.
Thank you, Keely. I really appreciate just the thoughtful response around that, and just your feedback there. So, and it looks like there's a lot of folks in the chat also echoing kind of your concerns, and I think you summarized that really well. So, we are taking note of these comments, and it's something that as we continue to kind of progress this project and development, that VTA, Mid-Penn, and the 87 off-ramp Caltrans folks will continue to kind of talk about and collaborate and see kind of how we can address some of those concerns. So thank you. And I want to take a moment to check in, Christina, on timing. I don't know, I've been seeing kind of some side chatter about switching breakout rooms.
So yeah, we got a notice to switch breakout rooms. We really wanted Keely to finish her thought. So we got 5 more minutes for that.
Okay.
So we've got another 2 or 3 minutes before we need to switch.
Okay, great. Thank you. Maybe another question from the chat. Let's see. Sorry,
there was one about resident services and whether they would be provided.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to Dominique in a moment. But I will say, just to kind of start us off, that at all of our, for Mid-Penn, at all of our properties, we do provide resident services for, a variety of, for both families, for those requiring supportive services, so formerly homeless or at risk of homeless folks, and for seniors. And so this particular community will be for families, and we'll also be providing supportive services. So I will hand it over to Dominique to kind of provide a little bit more detail on some of the services that we anticipate providing at this community.
Thank you, Cynthia. Well, at this site, we expect that we're going to be providing an array of services. We're going to, this site would be a mixed site with families and individuals with histories of homelessness. So we'd be providing economic mobility support, workforce development, that's inclusive of vocational development, assistance with finding jobs, asset building, money management. And for our supportive housing individuals, we provide an array of supports. That is from mental health support. We provide PTOT services on site through contracts with partnerships. There's an array of social services that go along around social engagement. There is behavioral modification programming that happens at the site. There are a number of different partners that we would work with to bring in to really address the needs of the entire community. And so part of the programming that we provide is once folks are placed into housing, we do comprehensive assessments with the community to determine what are the real needs. They're going to be varied in individuals. So our approach is always about the individual and speaking to the needs of individuals as well as the community.
Just want to jump in and say there's 1 minute left.
All right. Let's see, scrolling up. Sorry, I'm just sifting through some of the chat. Let's see if I can get another question. Sorry. I did see a question about electric or parking spaces for electric vehicles. That is a requirement for many jurisdictions. So it's something that when we design the site, we would include with kind of the residential parking, and we'll adhere to the requirements required by San Jose.
Time to change.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you all. We, the panelists, this group of panelists are going to switch to the other breakout room, but you all can just stay put, and the folks from the other breakout room will be shifting over here in a moment. So for those for the panelists, you can go to the ellipses, click breakout room, and click join group 2. So I will stay here for a little bit in case anyone has questions panelist wise, and then everyone just hang tight as we kind of shift and switch the breakout rooms here.
And hi, Cynthia. We got the message in the VTA breakout room to move into this one. So
great.
Folks are, the VTA team is transitioning.
Hey,
Great, and so are we. Thank you.
How do I move?
If you go down, it's okay. If you go down to at the bottom of your screen, it should say more with an ellipses. If you click that, it should say breakout rooms. You seeing that?
Yeah.
Cynthia, mine doesn't say more. Where is that?
It's at the bottom of your screen. It should be kind of, where the reactions are, and it says share screen. And there should either be an icon that says breakout rooms, or it should say more. But let me see, Natalie, if I can, we might need to make you a host to do that. So let me just message Jolene.
Thank you.
I will try to switch her over right now, and Kathleen too.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm gonna hop over to the other room, but I'll see you, Natalie, in a second. Oops.
And Jolene, let me know when we should begin, once everybody's sorted out into the appropriate rooms.
Hold on one second. There's one more. I can find her. Janice, are you in the main room?
Yes, this is the main room.
Yes. So you're good. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. You can go ahead and begin.
Thanks, Jolene. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the breakout room that's hosted by VTA. And this breakout room is focused on discussing the access and transportation needs in the station area. So again, we'll have 15 minutes to have a discussion. And our goal for this breakout session is to really gain a better understanding of how folks use the station area today, to use the station today, and to understand what you like and dislike about the station area. So thinking about that from a transportation and access perspective. So understanding that we have a redevelopment opportunity here, and then some of those access challenges could be addressed as part of this project or another project. So that's really what we want to do with the access study today, is just to identify what those needs are, what the community in the surrounding area is interested in seeing, and how that overlaps with the needs of the site. So before we go into our questions, can I have a volunteer who can do a brief recap of what we discussed in this breakout room? And this volunteer will just need to kind of highlight just the main takeaways, key issues and concerns that were raised in a 30-second recap to the larger group. Do I have any volunteers? Please raise your hand or say say something in the chat so I can see you. We have a good number of people in this room. I'm not seeing any volunteers, so I will ask again, pretty please. Could we have somebody volunteer? This is just very quick summary recap about what you heard that was discussed in this room. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody, so maybe we can ask for somebody on one of our staff to be that person. Who can be that person for this room? Anybody on staff? Can I assign someone? Okay, how about
Lola's
Janice?
got her.
since-
I was
Oh,
gonna say
I'm
Lola
sorry.
put up her hand. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I can do it, yep.
Thank you, Lola.
You're welcome.
All right, so we do have a few questions prepared. Feel free to use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen or to type in your questions or response into the Zoom chat. We do have staff available to respond and provide a written response or a verbal response. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer to run through some of our questions.
I'm on mute. Okay. You can see my screen, I assume? Good. Okay. So we've developed a series of questions for this Q&A session. We have some tagged responses, but feel free to add your own. The first question we have for everyone is, do you use Capitol or Branham stations? And because we're talking about 2 stations here, if you can identify which station you're talking about in your response, that would be great. So which station do you use and how often? Every day, once a week, monthly, yearly, never? Getting some responses, Molly?
Yeah, so we're hearing utilization. Somebody chimed in they don't use because they don't find it safe or clean. They've used Branham and maybe twice a year. Rare user or never using. Somebody who's teenagers or college students used to use it, but they no longer use it because they don't feel safe. Tend to use Branham rarely, and a few others never use Capital One.
Okay, thank you. And so our next question for everyone is, how do you travel to the stations? And if you don't travel to the stations, maybe just note how you get around. So our options here that we've listed is as a pedestrian, and we're curious whether you are coming farther than a 15-minute walk or shorter than a 15-minute walk. Bicycle or scooter, connecting bus, by car, and if you can note whether you carpool or drive alone, or other. Oh, Molly, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, thank you. So focus on the chat. Okay, the themes in the chat are driving and walking.
Okay. So our next question is, what do you like about the station areas today? If you could identify one thing that works well about each station, what would it be? And if you can note the station name in your comments, that would be great.
The response so far is they like that the train stops at the station. no other responses to the question yet.
Okay. All
We
right,
have, I
well,
think, comments for your next question. So somebody
Okay.
likes that the facility was recently cleaned up at Branham.
okay. So my next question is, what do you dislike about the station areas today? So if you could improve one thing, what would it be? And remember to note the station name in your comments. And try to keep it to one thing. What's the most important thing?
Clear comments about safety, disliking the current safety situation, disliking the destination options from the Capitol or Branham stations. More comments about disliking the current safety situation.
Okay, great. And our last question is, which of the following improvements would you be most interested in? Which ones would help you get to and from the station? And feel free to add other ideas, but we've given you some to get you started. So maybe curb extensions would help you, real-time transit information, protected bike lanes, bike share, pedestrian head starts at crosswalks, wider sidewalks, fill in the gaps in sidewalks. Maybe it needs more landscaping, enhanced crosswalks, more wayfinding, better lighting, maybe a better drop off, and traffic calming, just as a few ideas.
Some of the responses so far are about addressing homeless situation as a desired improvement, security, including traffic security, bad driver comment, wider streets to feed into the freeway,
Okay.
more lanes, security issues, comments about the freeway on-ramp, need for more calming measures, another comment about the current homelessness situation, traffic calming.
Great. Okay, well, that was the last of our prepared questions. And I'll pass it back to Aiko to open the floor to other questions if people want to raise their hand.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for taking the time to share your feedback through the chat. I see a lot of people are still responding with some of the issues and concerns they have. So I want to open it up. This is a general Q&A where you can ask your questions by raising your hand or inputting it into the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as we can tonight. So do I see any hands? Sure. Molly?
I'd like to flag there are a few questions in the chat that one was a desire for more information about the 87 off-ramp study, and there's another theme of questions about the process of the access study. When for providing additional questions about the process for providing input on the access study in a scientific way, where those were two themes. If you could maybe start.
Yeah, I'll take the access study, and then maybe I can ask a clarifying question of what scientific means. Like, what are we?
The specific comment was that the poll there's not a poll. We're reading from the chat, so it sounds like there might be interest in hearing more about the pop-up and how the information gathered tonight and the information at pop-ups kind of feeds into recommended improvements.
So we are just beginning the access study, and the meeting that you're in tonight is really our first opportunity to engage with you all as community members to get your feedback on some of the access issues and concerns and improvements that you may want to see. But this is not really the end of it. This is just the beginning. We are going to go back out this fall. We will have a survey where we will ask questions. We will be, that will be an online survey. We will also be in person at different locations throughout in this community with pop-up events. So we will go out there and we will be tabling going to where you are, asking you questions, and trying to really understand some of the concerns that I think, like here, we're kind of getting a flavor of what some of those key issues are, but really kind of just doing more on a conversational way, so we can have more time to talk about this, and we can get feedback throughout the entire planning process, so that we can like kind of holistically understand all of the different issues and concerns by this community. So the second question related to the 87 Narvez interchange, I'm going to hand that off to Jean. Maybe Jean can share some initial, give a preview of the initial concepts that are being considered as part of that project.
Sure, thanks, Aiko. Yeah, this was a similar question in the other breakout room. And basically, like I said in the presentation, we are in the early stages of the project. But part of that, part of the process will be to develop a traffic operational analysis report where we collect traffic data using our VTA traffic model and the San Jose general plan, and forecast the traffic to our opening year in 2028, and also 20 years beyond that. So we make sure that what we build doesn't get congested down the road. But the other thing I shared with the other group is that the solution that we're looking at is to move the ramps to connect directly with Capitol Expressway, and remove the connection at Narvez, and that'll make Narvez a safer local street, and they'll be configured for better sidewalks, and extend the bicycle path through there. And we're also planning to improve bicycle and pedestrian access on Capitol Expressway. At this point, we don't know the configuration. We're working with Caltrans in the city of San Jose, but that's in the process. So that's just a preview of what we're looking at. Did you guys hear me okay? Because I think I was having problems in the...
No, we can hear you clearly, and I'll just add a warning that in a few minutes, we'll all be prompted to go back to the main Zoom room for the debrief and next steps. There's some more questions in the chat for the VTA folks about the process for really wanting the process for notifying people about the access study opportunities, or to get more information about and ensure that there's comprehensive outreach.
Jolene's on the line. Okay, great. I just wanted to let you all know that we do have a webpage. You can sign up to get notified of any upcoming meetings, any upcoming pop-up events when we release the online survey. If you have any suggestions for us on how we can better make sure that everybody is notified, and if there are very specific groups that we should be talking to, please let us know. That is something that you can input in the chat or reach out to us by email, so that we're making sure that we're engaging with everybody who needs to be engaged about the study. Let's see, there's just the last question, the recently, and maybe this is for Jean as a follow-up. With the recent lane reductions on Capitol, Pearl, and other streets in this area, how are you planning that 20-year out congestion?
So we're not planning any reductions in the area of the interchange. I'm not sure what's happening on Pearl and Capitol, but this is a major thoroughfare. We're actually planning to improve the throughput and have a consistent 3 lanes through that area. I think there's a drop off somewhere east of of Narvaez. So we're trying to make sure we move traffic through this area. But there's no consideration of dropping lanes as part of this project.
I'm going to be ending the breakout room, so we're going to be meeting as a group in just a few minutes or a few seconds.
Our first question for everyone is, do you use Capitol or Branham stations? So if you can type in the chat, or if you can put your hand up if you like. And we'd like to know how often you use the station. Martha's hand's still up. Should we, while we're waiting for these responses to come in?
Yeah, Martha, would you like to ask your questions to the group, or would you like to type it into the chat?
Just put my hand in the air so I'd be in line, so you wouldn't tell me you were out of time. So when we get to when we can make comments, I have one. I'm trying to type now in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And Molly, you're monitoring the chat?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll let me know if you want me to lift up any questions, Jennifer.
Are there any that you think we should address before we move on to the next question? Or save them till the end? The
feedback in the chat is mostly that folks are not currently using the Capitol or Branham VTA stations. There are folks who drive by frequently, and somebody shared that prior to COVID, they were using the station every day. Those are the responses. The theme of the responses to the slide.
Okay. So let's move to the next question. So assuming you do travel to the stations, how do you travel there? As a pedestrian, on a bicycle or scooter, connecting bus, by car, and whether you travel in a carpool or alone or other. And if you don't travel to the station, you can always respond to how you generally travel to get around.
And the responses we're seeing in the chat to the question of how do you travel to the stations is a range of walkers, a community member riding their bicycle, some drivers, more pedestrians, combination of walking and driving.
Great. Okay. Are there still responses coming in, or should we move on to the next one?
It looks like we're ready to move on.
Okay. So we want to know, the first question is what do you like about the station area today? If you could describe one thing that works well about each station, what would it be? Don't worry, you'll get a chance for the dislike. We're going to stay positive on this one.
Some of the responses about what people like about the Capitol Station area include open space, the trees at Capitol Station, easy access to Capitol, that there's an elevator access. There's community members that don't have a preference of what they like at the in the Capitol Station area. Positive comments on the looks of the Branham Station. Others who don't particularly like anything about the Capitol Station area. Positive comments about coverage from rain and proximity of the station. Traffic light in and out of Capitol Station.
Great.
And
Great, that's good. So the next one is, this one might take a little longer, I'm sure. What do you dislike about the station areas today? If you could improve one thing about each station, what would it be?
Not seeing any responses yet. Here's some coming in, that it's impossible to park at Capitol due to the traffic station getting onto the 85. Comments about lack of maintenance, dirty, that it's dark and doesn't feel safe, that comments around the theme of being unkept, specifically weeds, elevator issues with the elevators not being maintained, or a comment about a lack of an elevator at Branham, trees not being maintained, Branham, access at Branham is at the top of a hill, theme of landscape, lack of landscape maintenance.
These are all great comments. Yeah. Great. Okay. So then our last slide, which of the following improvements would you be most interested in? Which ones would help you get to and from the station? And feel free to add other ideas in the chat. But some of the ideas we're throwing out there are curb extensions, real-time transit signage, protected bike facilities, bike share, pedestrian head start at the crosswalk, sidewalks, widening them, fill in the gaps, landscaping, enhanced crosswalks, additional wayfinding, lighting, maybe a better pickup area, and traffic calming. And obviously there's additional items that could be improvements that could be made, but there's a list to get you started.
Here, Jennifer, I'm seeing enhanced crosswalks, road and sidewalk improvements, traffic calming. Sidewalks, leveling the roadway on Narvez, traffic calming, better landscaping and lighting, making the area safer, need to prioritize cleaning up the site, working on traffic, desire for a neighborhood park, again, more landscaping, lighting, traffic calming.
Great, getting some great responses. Yeah. Excellent. So that was the last of our prepared questions. Aiko, I'll pass it back to you as moderator.
So thank you for this lively discussion and chat in our Zoom chat. There's a thank you for providing your feedback. These are really great inputs that we will use for our access study that we are just kicking off. Again, this is just the start of this planning process, and tonight is an opportunity for us to hear from you. We really want to use this as a listening session. So give us feedback, give us things that you think we should consider as part of looking at station accessibility at these two sites. So really, this is the Q&A portion now. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask a question, or to put it into the chat. We'll respond in both ways. So let's see, I see Martha, you have your hand raised. Come off mute and ask your question.
I don't have a question. I want to really stress this. I live on the north side of Capitol Station on Navarrete Avenue. There is not a safe crosswalk there with a light for pedestrians. Please do not tell the seniors to walk a long block past the Adrian Storage, past the child care center. We are not going to do it. We're not going to do it. If you're a disabled person, even 20 more steps is a struggle. So we've had accidents on that corner. We had a guy killed on a motorcycle from our park. So we need a crosswalk that we can utilize, and please make it one of those longer ones for seniors, where it counts down 22 seconds. So that's my comment. We really need that to be safe. We have 2 senior parks, mobile home parks, and a family park within, 2 of them are within 6 minutes walking distance of that station. So thank you very much for hopefully getting that crosswalk.
Thank you, Martha. That's really important input, that especially when it concerns safety. So we will definitely take that feedback and incorporate that as part of our access study. Any other hands raised? No? Okay. Let's see. I see a comment here about improving light rail schedule integration with Caltrain. And a question, how increased traffic and congestion is going to be dealt with? New lanes to access 87 freeway. So maybe I'll pass this off to Jean Gonzalo to just talk a little bit about the 87 Capital Expressway interchange project, and then the traffic study that will be done as part of that.
Right, thanks, Aiko. We will, like I said before in our presentation, we are in the early planning stages for this improvement, but always a process in developing projects is to doing a traffic operation analysis, getting all the traffic information, the modeling from VTA and the city of San Jose. So we'll look at the traffic forecast for the opening year, and we'll also look at 20 years beyond that, just to make sure that, you know, once we build it, it doesn't get congested right away. But I'll just give you a preview of what the project is going to look like. It basically will be removing the access point to the freeway from Narvaez and connect it directly to Capitol, similar to the southbound ramps. The configuration of that is still being developed, but that would make Narvaez more of a local street, and it'll be improved to provide more accessibility and safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. So that's just what we're trying to do at this point.
Thank you. I'd like to let the attendees know that the VTA team will be in this breakout room 1 more minute, and then we will all leave this room, and you please stay here so that you can have a chance for dialogue with the Mid-Penn team. So 1 minute warning.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Jean. So Patricia, you're asking something related to the, we're planning for the exit and entrance to the 87 freeway. I hope that the information that Jean provided answered your question, but please let me know if you have any follow-up questions that you feel like that didn't get addressed. There's a question here related to, is the vacant lot on Bridget and Narvaez part of the development plan? Molly, do you want to take that one?
The vacant lot on Bridget and Narvaez is not part of the development plan. That is a city-owned site. VTA is in the process of confirming with the city what the current shortlist of anticipated uses are. In the past, that shortlist had included a park, which I understand there was community interest in. It's not part of the Mid-Penn housing development.
Okay, and not seeing any more questions. Let's see. Any final things that we could address maybe in the last 30 seconds that VTA staff is in this room? So before I leave you all, thank you so much for the feedback that you've provided. We will be going out this fall to ask for more feedback through different engagement efforts through our pop-up events. We will be doing a survey. I think there was a comment there. Have we surveyed who uses and who rides light rail? We will be going out with a survey. So please keep an eye on that and keep an eye out for more information coming out of this study.
Can you wait 1 second
Thank
before
you.
we leave? I think we're a little bit ahead of time, so we can stay another few minutes. So
Okay.
if there's any more
What do you
questions.
recommend? 5 more minutes in this room, Jolene? Let's
I'm
take 5
going to
more
say
minutes.
that to the next team.
Okay.
Yeah, Debbie
Okay.
has a question. Looks like.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said, Jean, about the freeway access between the 87 Capitol Expressway on and off ramps. Could you say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Basically, I was saying that what we're looking at is probably a direct access to Capitol Expressway. And the current access in Narvaez will be removed, and that'll be just a totally full local street in the end. So,
Oh, good. Thanks. Okay.
There's a question from Patricia.
Yes, I was wondering if the configuration of Narvaez as it comes off of Capitol, it has a big turn in it, and every year there's been issues with the road sinking there. I was wondering if they're looking at reconfiguring that turn or straightening it, or about the trees that are in the divider there. Will that be something that they're going to have to, or are you not ready to talk about it in that detail yet?
yeah, probably we're still looking at configurations. So definitely we'll take your comment and see if that's something we can address in our development of that project.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just checking the chat real quick to see if there are any answers or any questions left unanswered. I don't see any. Please let me know if you have any more questions or comments. Talking about the future annual transit service plan.
Aiko, could you speak to this question Alex has about ridership increase, or do you like my assistance there? There's a few questions there.
So was that Brian that was asking the questions about, are you talking about the Brian's question?
I'm seeing some questions from Alex and maybe Maeve
Alex,
about
I'm
ridership
sorry.
increase. And I think I'll share that the VTA land at the Capitol Station site is 10 acres. And that's 10 acres mostly for parking. And pre-COVID, that parking lot was about 20% utilized. So a lot of it, as people may have seen, wasn't parked in. So part of this transit-oriented development is making use of that land in a way that meets multiple goals, including housing and increasing ridership and maximizing the use of this land near transit.
So there's a comment about the closest grocery stores, Lucky's, will improve the walkability between Capitol Station and Lucky's. So our access study will be looking at a half-mile radius from the station area. So within that project area, we will be looking at improving walkability and looking at any gaps in the pedestrian and bicycle connection there. More traffic. There's a comment about the Hillsdale street improvements. I'm assuming that's the new the road diet on Hillsdale. More traffic is okay. And then says there's a question about how much parking will be provided for the residents who will live on site. So maybe Molly, you can take that one.
Thanks. I'm also addressing it in chat. So this is a transit-oriented development. We're anticipating building 203 homes for families ranging from families who might have one occupant and prefer a studio to larger families that might prefer a 3-bedroom unit. So a range of unit sizes to address a range of housing needs. We are going to have a 0.5 parking ratio. So one parking stall for every 2 units. And that is informed by this being a transit-oriented development. Some of the initiatives we're looking into to make that work here, as we've made it work at other communities that MidPenn has developed, include having no-cost transit passes for all residents, and by having this range of units, so we can serve really different household sizes, looking at a no parking preference for some homes, etc.
So panelists, it's time for us to switch over.
Okay, thank you, everyone.